right, traveler. Let's dive into this Disneyland Paris trip you're planning. We've got all the intel here, official recommendations, ticket prices, and we even dug into the Reddit and TripAdvisor trenches for you.
Ooh, getting down and dirty with those online forums. I like it.
You know it. We're on a mission to help you find that sweet spot. Enough time to soak up the magic without missing out on all the other amazing things to do in France.
It's a tricky balance for sure. You don't want to feel rushed at Disneyland Paris, but on the other hand, you don't want to book a whole week when a long weekend would have done the trick.
Exactly. So let's go straight to the source. Disneyland Paris themselves. What's their ideal scenario?
Well, according to their official FAQ page, they recommend 3 full days.
3 full days.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 for the main Disneyland park and 1 for Walt Disney Studios.
Which makes sense strategically when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
subtly encourages those multi-day park ticket purchases. And of course, longer stays at their hotels.
Right, because if you're already spending 3 days in the parks,
Yeah.
it's tempting to just make a whole trip out of it.
Exactly. And speaking of tempting, they kind of nudge you towards a whole week to experience everything. You know, the hotels, Disney Village, all that Disney magic. They want you fully immersed in that bubble.
It's a smart strategy for sure. Create that immersive world and make it hard to leave. So that's their pitch.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a second and look at the actual ticket options. Get Your Guide lays it all out. Your classic one-day tickets for one or both parks.
The classic option.
But then they also offer same-day tickets, which is interesting.
Interesting and pricier.
Oh, definitely. That's the classic. I forgot to buy tickets markup.
Exactly. They know you might get swept up in the excitement and just need to be inside the magic. But hey, sometimes it's worth paying a little extra for spontaneity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that last-minute plane ticket, You're probably paying a premium, but sometimes you just got to go for it. Okay, so we've got those single-day options. And then, of course, there are the 2, 3, and 4-day tickets, which, again, further encourages those longer stays. But now, for the really interesting part, real people, real opinions. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to hear from someone who's been there, done that.
And bought the
Oversized Mickey Mouse ears.
100%. There's nothing quite as valuable as real-world experiences, especially when it comes to something as subjective as trip planning.
Okay, so over on Reddit, there's this one thread that just cracked me up. It's this parent who was worried about overestimating their teenage son's enthusiasm for Disneyland Paris. They were letting their own childhood Disneyland memories cloud their judgment. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that.
Oh, absolutely. Nostalgia is a powerful thing, especially when it comes to Disney. It can really warp your perception of how much fun a teenager will have.
Totally. And the responses they got in the thread were all over the place. Some hardcore planners said they managed to squeeze everything into 2 days.
2 days. Wow, that's a whirlwind.
Right. Talk about a fast-paced trip.
Yeah.
On the other hand, some people stretched it out to 5 luxurious days, really taking their time and savoring every single moment.
Wow, 5 days at Disneyland Paris. That sounds like a dream.
Right. So clearly there's a spectrum here. But the big takeaway is age and interests really matter.
Yeah.
It's like trying to plan a meal that'll satisfy a picky toddler and a hangry teenager all at once. Not an easy feat.
Oh, tell me about it. And then you've got the adults who grew up with Disney. They might have a whole different must-do list than someone who's never been.
So true. Speaking of must-dos, another Reddit thread we found tackled that age-old question. Is 2 days enough for Disneyland Paris?
The $1,000,000 question.
Right. And the general consensus seemed to be, yeah, 2 days is doable.
Okay.
But you're going to be moving. It's going to be a fast-paced trip.
Yeah, it's like that commando-style touring. Hit the highlights, stick to the itinerary. No time for dawdling. If you're all about efficiency, 2 days might cut it, but you won't have much breathing room for those spontaneous moments of magic.
Exactly. And let's be real. Sometimes those spontaneous moments are the best part of a Disney trip.
Totally. Getting lost in Fantasyland, stumbling upon a surprise character meet and greet. You can't really plan for that stuff.
Exactly. 3 days seem to be the sweet spot for most people, especially if you have younger kids to factor in. Those inevitable meltdowns, snack breaks,
Yeah.
maybe a chance to revisit a favorite ride.
Right. 3 days really changes the experience. It goes from go, 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 next attraction, to actually savoring the atmosphere, enjoying the shows, maybe even having a leisurely lunch.
Yes. Not everything has to be a mad dash for the next thing.
Well,
And speaking of things that can slow you down, we found a TripAdvisor forum where someone was planning a Disneyland Paris trip with young children, and the responses highlighted something super important: time of year.
yes, peak season. Can't forget about those crowds.
Yeah. Right. Like, those lines can get insanely long. which really eats into how much you can actually do each day.
Totally. It's like adding a peak season buffer to your trip length.
Peak season buffer. I like it. So you've got all this information swirling around. What's the bottom line? What have we learned?
Well, the good news is there's definitely a pattern here. Think of it like a choose-your-own-adventure for your Disneyland Paris trip length.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Tell me more.
Okay, so at the bare minimum level, you've got your 2-day whirlwind tour. It's strategically planned, potentially intense, but it gets the job done if that's all the time you have. But if you want a little more flexibility, to enjoy those shows, revisit favorites, maybe have a meltdown-averting ice cream break without feeling like you're missing out, that's where the sweet spot of 3 days comes in.
3 days does sound like the sweet spot, like you said.
Yeah.
Gives you a little breathing room, which is always a good thing on vacation. You want to enjoy yourself, not be running around like a mad person.
Exactly. No one wants to come home from vacation needing another vacation to recover. But then on the other side of that, there's the, if you want to take that deep dive into the magic, really experience it all.
Yeah, like those Disney diehards who know every nook and cranny.
Exactly. You want to explore every inch of those parks, maybe do some character dining, or, if you're brave enough to face those peak season crowds.
Yeah, got to factor that in.
Then you're venturing into, we'll call it the maximalist magic territory of 4 or more days. 4 more days at Disneyland Paris. Now that's a real fairy tale ending to any European vacation.
Right, that's a trick. Not just a trip to Disneyland Paris.
Exactly. And, thinking about all this, it really highlights that there's no single right answer. It all comes down to you.
Okay, so if I'm sitting here with my travel planner open, what are my biggest takeaways?
Well, first things first, what's your travel style? Are you the type who thrives on a jam-packed itinerary? Or are you more go with the flow? Because those are 2 very different Disney experiences.
Oh, for sure. I could already picture those 2 travelers.
Right. And then equally important, who are you traveling with? Are we talking toddlers? Easily bored teenagers? A mix of Disney fanatics and those who are just along for the ride?
It's like packing for different climates. You need different gear depending on who you're with.
That's a great analogy. And then, of course, don't forget about those peak season crowds. If you're visiting during a busy time, you might need to factor in extra time just to do everything you want.
It's like the old saying, give yourself a buffer, avoid the suffer, or something like that.
Words to live by. But ultimately, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to Disneyland Paris trip length. It's all about finding what feels right for you and your crew.
So as you're weighing those ticket options and crafting that perfect itinerary, remember, this isn't just about checking things off a list. It's about creating your own Disneyland Paris story.
Ooh, I love that.
Maybe this is just chapter 1.
Exactly. And the story can continue to unfold over multiple trips as your family grows, your interests change. There's so many possibilities.
And isn't that the magic of Disney? It grows with you. Well, everyone, we hope this deep dive has helped you get a little closer to finding your perfect Disneyland Paris trip length. Don't forget to share this episode with a fellow traveler. And be sure to check out the episode description for links to purchase Disneyland Paris tickets. Until next time, happy planning.